I think if you were to ask most NFL fans, a lot of them would tell you that the Atlanta Falcons were one of the most underwhelming teams in the 2024 season. This was a team that went all out this offseason, made a bunch of key pickups, being Justin Simmons, Matthew Judon, Kirk Cousins. And unfortunately, they fell short of the playoffs. They were a game behind the Buccaneers in the NFC South, and they came just short. And yet I feel so much better about them going into next season than I did going into this past one. Michael Penix Jr. came in at quarterback for them down the stretch, and he looked fantastic. He looked every bit as good of a top 10 pick that they spent on him. And they're looking like absolute geniuses for making that pick. You've got great skill positions in place in Drake London and Bijan Robinson. If you can improve this defense, I think that this is a team that can get up towards the top of the NFC in just a couple of years. So what can the Falcons do in this draft to try and get to that point with such limited draft capital? That's what we're going to be attempting to do in today's video. We are doing a 7-round Atlanta Falcons mock draft, one of my favorite teams to draft for because they need defense. And I think this is the perfect class to go out and address the defensive needs. If you guys are new to the channel, though, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Helps me out a ton. Lets me know you guys are enjoying the videos. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon page. I will leave that linked in the description below. A lot of people are starting to ask for it as the draft is getting closer. There, you guys will find my full draft guide with my big board, prospect breakdowns, scouting reports, combine and pro day numbers. You name it, you'll be able to find it on my page. So be sure to hit the link in the description for only $5 a month. I highly recommend checking it out. A little bit of housekeeping if you guys are new to the series. We're not taking the same players twice, and trades do happen if we do get a trade on a different simulator that I deem a viable trade back. So there's that, but let's go ahead and kick this off with the Atlanta Falcons, who hold the number 15 overall pick. So we're on the clock here at number 15, and we've only got 4 draft picks in this draft. I don't see how that can remain the case. Cincinnati comes calling. They want to move up just 2 spots to move up from 17 to 15. We are going to get pick 81 in return. So we're adding an extra 3rd rounder, which I believe we lost in trading for Matthew Judon. So we want to recoup some draft capital. I think this is the right draft to do that. We mentioned defense being a huge need. So I'm going to make this move with Cincinnati. Maybe we will trade back again if we get another offer, but adding an extra 3rd round pick to me here feels like a no-brainer. All right, here on the clock at pick number 17, a couple of players that really catch my attention. First off, it is Walter Nolan, a player that I have somehow not taken in this series thus far. Walter Nolan is one of my favorite interior defensive line prospects I have ever studied. I've been on record saying he's one of the best athletes I think I have seen at the position. When you look at the measurables, 6'3", 293 pounds. He's only 21 years old, a former #1 overall recruit. He's got long arms, and he's just super athletic, super quick first step off the line of scrimmage, heavily recruited out of high school that can play all over the defensive line. He took some snaps at 3-tech. He played off the edge at times, and he's a great run defender, but he's developing as a pass rusher. If you look at some of the advanced pass rush numbers for him this past year, had 35 pressures, had a 10.9% pass rush win rate, which is really good for an interior defensive lineman. I think he would be an excellent pick here. This is a team, however, that did spend a pretty heavy 2nd-round pick on Rucororo last year. Unfortunately, that didn't really work out. I don't think that would stop you from drafting a Walter Nolan, who I think is a better overall prospect and a safer bet to be that Grady Jarrett replacement long-term. The other player that I've got my eye on is in the secondary, and that's going to be Jahdae Barron. A.J. Terrell, fantastic cornerback. There are no questions asked about that, but you have to look to upgrade the secondary outside of that. Jesse Bates is a fantastic corner, and you don't really have anybody else there that I can consistently trust to make plays. And I think Jahdae Barron is one of the best corners in this draft class. He is my number 4 corner in the draft, and he's an easy 1st-round grade for me. I think I've got him as my number 29 overall prospect, but I think he's going to go in the top 20 with the way teams are talking about him. This is a guy that played safety coming into his collegiate career with Texas. And they moved him to the slot where he was fantastic. And he played on the boundary this past year where he had a 91.1 coverage grade per PFF. He's a great tackler. He only allowed 284 yards this season on 68 targets, and he had 5 interceptions and 9 pass breakups. He's got fantastic ball skills, really smart in zone coverage, and I think he would be a home run pick here if the Falcons decided to address the secondary. I don't think you can go wrong with either of these players. I am going to go with Jahdae Barron, though, for the simple fact that I think secondary is a little bit less deep in this class. I don't think you're going to be able to get a player like Jahdae Barron in the second, third round. I think you can find great defensive linemen down the board. So I'm going to make this move. I'm going to get Jahdae Barron here at pick number 17. Here at number 46, I think it's a no-brainer. We have to go with an edge rusher. And this is why I didn't want to go defensive line early. I know you could double dip and get an interior guy, but I think the value here on day 2 is really good. On the interior, you got Tyleik Williams, who could be a great run stuffer. I think I'm going to push it back to pick 81 and kind of see the way the board is falling. I like some guys down the board that I think could be really good fits. I am going to go with an edge rusher, though, and I really don't think you can go wrong with any of these top 4 guys. It's really just a matter of who do you think is going to fit this scheme. I think right off the bat, Donovan Ezeraku is the player that I like the most here. 6'2", 248 pounds, so a little bit shorter. Doesn't really have the greatest weight, but he's got 82 3/8-inch wingspan and 34.5-inch arms. So he's got really long arms for kind of a shorter build edge rusher. He was absolutely phenomenal this past year for Boston College. Showcased the ability to win with an array of different pass rush moves. He can win with a swim. He can win with an up and under. And I think he's got absolutely phenomenal bend for the position. He's a really productive run defender that closes the gaps in the run game really, really well. And I think he moves so fluidly. He does need to fix his pads. I think he can be inconsistent. And I do feel like his first step is fantastic. But after that, I do think he can slow down. Those would be your biggest concerns with Ezeraku as a prospect. But, I mean, the numbers that he put up this past season were phenomenal. An 8.1% missed tackle rate, which is really good. 18.6% pass rush win rate, had 14 sacks and 42 run stops with 61 pressures, 3 forced fumbles in there for Boston College. He's fantastic. The other player I have my eye on is Princely Umanmielen, the other Ole Miss player. Both of these guys, I think, are very close on my board. Princely Umanmielen, 6'4", 264 pounds. So he's got a little bit more of that build that you're looking for. Long arms, again, 34.25-inch arms. He is just a speed rusher that just with fantastic size. I think he's got great power as well. A transfer from Florida that kind of was underutilized there. He comes out to Ole Miss this season and puts up fantastic numbers. He had 56 pressures, 11 sacks, and a 23.9 pass rush win rate. I think both of these guys would be really good. I'm actually shocked that Umanmielen is on the board. I truly believe that he is going to be a borderline first-round pick. But if he's on the board here at 46, I think Umanmielen is going to be that pick for me. I think he's got speed to power. He's got really good tools. And while I do think he needs to develop a few more pass rush moves, I think he has a little bit of a higher ceiling, and I think the size is a little bit better for this defense. So I'm going to go with Princely Umanmielen. I really don't think you can go wrong here. I think the board fell perfectly for Atlanta here at 46. Here at pick number 81, I'm going to go get another skill position. I know that's not going to sound like the popular pick here to a lot of Falcons fans, but Isaiah Bond slipping down draft boards, and I think he is absolutely perfect for this team. He's my number 13 receiver in the class. He did not have a great season for Texas, only 540 yards and 5 touchdowns. Compared to where he was at Alabama just a year ago, though, this is a guy that has immense upside at the wide receiver position. Let me pull up his measurables. He's 5'11", 180 pounds. This is a guy that is just an absolute speed demon. He's going to take the top off the defense, and I think he's a fantastic deep threat. With Michael Penix, with the arm that he has, you saw it at Washington. He thrived at throwing those deep balls. I love Drake London. I think he's going to be a really good wide receiver next year. But I do think you could look to improve the Y spot and just go get some speed there. I like Darnell Mooney. I thought Ray McCloud was pretty good for them down the stretch. but I don't know if I trust that to be my 3 going into next year. So I'm going to invest the 3rd round pick that we got from the Cincinnati Bengals and go get Isaiah Bond, who I think is one of the fastest receivers in this class. And I think the upside with him is really, really high. I think he fits what this team wants to do offensively, take shots, and I think he's going to be a really good player. So I'm going to take Isaiah Bond here at pick number 81 to kind of round out my wide receiver trio. Here at pick number 117, I was hoping that I would get a good trade offer, but unfortunately, no teams came calling trying to look to make us a deal. So I'm kind of in an interesting spot here. I am going to go on the interior of the defensive line because, as we mentioned, Grady Jarrett is a free agent next year. You also have David Onyemata, a free agent next year. The defensive line does not look very strong. You drafted Rucororo, like we mentioned. He did not necessarily have the season that you were hoping that he would have as a Atlanta Falcons fan. Was one of the worst rookies drafted, to be completely honest. I think you got to improve the run defense up front and go get a nose tackle. Joshua Farmer was a player that I considered at 81. I just don't think he fits this team and what they need. I also think Jordan Phillips, I took him in a previous mock. I think right now I've got my eyes set on an Ole Miss defensive lineman in J.J. Pegues. It's kind of funny how the board has fallen where we've gotten 2 Texas players, 2 Ole Miss players, but I'm not complaining about it because I think those were 2 of the best teams in college football this past year. And J.J. Pegues is a player that is starting to fly up draft boards. The athleticism that he has at 323 pounds is really exciting. He's a really solid mover with a quick first step. They could line him up all over the defensive line, whether that be at 3 tech, whether that be at nose tackle. And I thought he did a really good job. He's got quick burst. He's a very good run defender, and he plays low to the ground. He's got a low center of gravity. He does have some pass rush upside, though. He showed some spin moves and swim moves. The athletic upside is raw, but I think you could mold him into being a really good interior defensive lineman for your team because I think he's got some really good tools. I do worry about the hands. I didn't think that he knew how to leverage his hands or play violently with them as often as I would like to see, which isn't a major concern. He's probably going to be a nose tackle, like I mentioned, but I would like to see that get better for him. And I did feel like there were times where he just got off balance, played too aggressively. I'd like to see that get toned back, but J.J. Pegues is a player that is going to continue to fly up draft boards, I think, because he can defend the run, he can rush the passer a little bit, and he's just a really fluid mover for a guy that's 323 pounds. So I'm going to take him here to the Atlanta Falcons. Continue to beef up this defensive line. I think you can move Rucororo to that 3-4 defensive end, which is where I think he should play. You could play Pegues at the nose tackle, and then you could play Grady Jarrett opposite of him. I think that looks like a formidable front 3 going into next season. So I like this pick a ton. I'm going to take J.J. Pegues at 117. Here at 244, we've got one final pick in this draft. I was hoping that we'd get more trade offers, but if we come away with this class, I think Falcons fans should be absolutely ecstatic. So much value down the board. Even at 244, we're going to get a player that just kind of fell into our lap. My guy in this class, and that's going to be Cincinnati tackle John Williams. He played left tackle this past season for the Bearcats. 6'3", 324 pounds. I've got a 4th to a 5th round grade on Williams. I think he could be a really impactful offensive lineman. He's been number 179 overall player. Haven't taken him yet in really any of these mock drafts, but I think he's got some really intriguing potential to be, whether that be a swing tackle that is just your backup in case of an injury, or whether he is the long-term replacement for Jake Matthews. I think John Williams has some really nice upside, really solid overall footwork. His hand placement is really impressive. I thought he did a great job of consistently countering pass rush moves, and he's got athleticism to move into the second level. Does need to work on his feet. At times, he can be a little heavy, and he got beat to the outside and the inside shoulder at times just because he didn't have the quick, fluid hips to react and keep himself in the play. But I think he's a player that I would bet on. I don't know if he will be – ideally, I wanted to take a center here, but, I mean, I could show you the board. The centers just didn't really fall. The only guy that I considered here was Bryce Cabeldu out of Kansas. Gus Hartwig, not a huge fan of him in this blocking scheme, and I just don't see the other guys being available as centers. I like Clay Webb. I think he's going to go much higher than this. So I'm going to go John Williams. I do think he is a really solid overall tackle. Maybe you could move him inside if you want to, but either way, just some more depth on the offensive line. I think this is the right move. We're going to take John Williams at 244. So there we have it, Falcons fans. My 7-round Atlanta Falcons mock draft. Improve the secondary, get some really much needed help along the defensive line, and then get an upside pick in receiver and offensive line. This is a tough one to do just because they only have 4 picks, but let me know. Do you think we made the best of the 4 picks? What would you have liked to see me do differently? Would love to hear from you guys down in the comment section below. Leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.